Welcome to our class, Introduction to Czech Research. This class is for those who just get their feet wet when it comes to Czech research. The main focus today will be on a Czech research of Czechs, not on Germans living in what is today the Czech Republic. But even if you have Germans from Bohemia or Moravia, please stay, since many record sources are the same for both nationalities. If you don't know where in the Czech Republic your ancestors came from, you need to do some US-based research first. The US Census records of 1900 or younger contain the year of immigration and the citizenship status. The year of immigration will help you to locate the passenger lists, and the younger of those often contain the last place of residence in Europe. Most Czechs use the Hamburg port to leave Europe. If you don't find your town of origin in the passenger list, either the departure or the arrival list, try the naturalization record. By checking the census, you will either know the decade when your ancestor was naturalized or the exact year when you find your immigrant ancestor in the younger census record. Try to find the petition for naturalization records, not the naturalization record itself. The petition includes more information, and after 1924, it also includes the exact place of birth. Still no luck? Try to find the obituary or death certificate of the ancestor in question. You might use newspapers.com, which is a subscription website, but they are free if you go to any LDS Family Search Center. If they don't have the newspaper from the geographical area where your ancestor died here in the US, contact a local library and ask them if they have or know about the newspaper for that specific time frame and where it is. In that case, you will probably have to travel there. Or maybe a military registration card will give you the right clue. A passport application might be another source. Town histories of those towns where your ancestor lived after he came to the States might contain some useful information. And if your ancestor came in the 1900s or later, try to find the Social Security death index. Also, if your ancestor married here in the States, it might contain the exact town of birth. The country that is today the Czech Republic was for a long time part of the Austrian Empire. This was in 1526. Before that, it belonged to the King of Hungary. Before that, it was ruled by the Grand Duke of Lithuania, and before him, by the King of Luxembourg. And even before him, it was the Duchy of Bohemia that also included Moravia. Czechia consists of 3 geographical areas: Bohemia, Moravia, and Czech Silesia. This map is from Wikicommons. The Austrian monarch declared the Catholic faith as a state religion, and that included the Czech lands. When the Lutheran Reformation swept through the lands, many Czechs converted, especially in the cities. But the Counter-Reformation in the early 1600s switched everything back to Catholicism. Protestant records were not allowed until 1770s, If there were some Lutherans, they were usually recorded in the Catholic parish records, either mixed in or as a separate set. Jewish records were not allowed until 1784. Those created after 1784 are found in the National Archive in Prague. They have started the digitization and they started to put them online. Several of these records were destroyed when the Russians occupied Prague, and unfortunately those records are lost forever. If you have Czech Jewish ancestry, check out the jewishgen.org website for further help. If your ancestors were Czech Catholics, which the large majority was, you need to search in two different sources, either the different Czech archive website or family search or both. Here is an example of the same set of records for the town Kadaň in northern Bohemia, which is in German Kaden. Once found on the archive page of the Little Miržice archive and once on family search. In my personal opinion, the family search site is easier to navigate. So the church records on the Czech archive website are those made by family search. The only difference is the Czechs are faster to get them online. And one archive even allows you to download the whole set of images onto your computer, usually one whole church book at a time. As everything is sorted by location, you need to know in which town your ancestors worshipped. And this is the town name you need to use when you search for any records. Unless your ancestors lived in the same town where the parish church was, you might not find your ancestral town. You need to search the church town where your ancestors belong to. So how do you know in which parish your ancestor belonged? Well, Professor Gundager from Vienna will help you here. But no worries, you don't need to write him. He created a wonderful online gazetteer for the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which includes Czechia. You will need a user account of him, with him, but this one is free. And it usually takes up to 48 hours until he approves it. And I will show you how to use it. This is the Gen Team website. As just mentioned, Professor Gundager created this site and he maintains it. He is also the one who grants you access because this is a website where you need a login. The site is free of charge, but for security reasons and probably because of hackers, he controls the access to it. This site is perfect if you have ancestry from the city of Vienna. But for your Czech purposes, we need the gazetteer. And you use the gazetteer here on the left side where you see the red square. If you click here on the right side, where it's also more the middle, where also gazetteer is listed, it will only tell you what a gazetteer is, but it will not give you the access to it unless you recently changed it. You can limit the search by choosing the crown land, but you don't have to. A crown land for the Austrian Empire is like a province, similar to the states, to a state here in the United States. Type in the town in its either by its Czech or by its German name. And you can ignore the Czech diacritics or the German umlauts. And while you type, it gives you suggestions. And once you click on a town, it will list all these alternatives if the previous drop-down window wasn't completely reduced to just one. And here you pick your most probable town. And once you picked your probable town, it will tell you where the parish was about the year 1900. It will also give you the name of the archive where the originals are stored, here mentioned as Leitmeritz, which is the German name for the Czech town Litoměřice. In Czechia, the originals are not at the parish. They are all at the archives. Once the youngest entry in a Czech parish book reaches a specific age, the parish must send it to the archive, at least to my knowledge. If you click on this blue Leitmeritz name, it leads you to the archive website of this town. As you can see it here, the archive has the Catholic parish records, and the 3 years listed in the middle indicate the beginning years for the oldest records they have for that town. The years, the first one is for the baptisms, the middle for the marriages, and the right one for the death. If you are in older records, for example, in the early 1800s, and there was no parish church in a town, and let's say the gazetteer suggested you that the parish record started in 1850, it will not tell you where the older parish was. In that case, you need to use a gazetteer, a map in combination with a gazetteer. And then you type in the town names that surround your ancestral village until you find 2 or 3 of the nearest churches that have older records than the one you are looking for, that, for example, start only in 1850. And one of those older parishes around them will be the one who took care of your ancestral village. Does this make sense? I hope so. Now let's access the actual records. I assume you know how to use family search. As already mentioned, just look for the town name where the parish was located, where your ancestors worshipped. And you can search for the town name in a Czech or in a German language, ignoring all diacritical marks, as I said before. Here in my case, both searches will lead to the very same set of records. As you can see on the left image, I started to write the town name according to the Czech spelling, and on the right side, according to the German spelling. It will always lead to the same set of records. And if in a parish never lived any Germans, there might be a chance that the search will be only possible under the Czech town name. The research on the Czech archive pages has similarities to family search, but it's also a little bit different. First, you need to know which Czech archive has the parish records for your ancestry. I showed you one way how to find it out with which Czech archive holds the records. It was by accessing the online gazetteer from Professor Gundaker. But there is also another possibility. And this is to go to Family Search Wiki. And so you drill down to the Czech Republic by first clicking on Europe, and then this little drop box will open on the left. And then you click on Czech Republic. And so you come to this website. And these here are very many of these wonderful links you can use. Several of those are worth to explore. So what you do here is to scroll down on this page until you see this map. It's actually an interactive map. And there you look for the county where your ancestors are from. And the county is in its present county borders, not the historical ones. Well, now let's assume that your ancestor came from the county of Ústí-nad-Orlicí, just to take a different town now, because before I used Kärnten. If you would hover your mouse over the county, it will tell you that the church records are in a Zamość archive. So you just click on this region, on this interactive map, and a new page will open. We are still here on a Family Search Wiki page. But here, try to find the link to the Family Search explanation page for this archive and click on it. If you are on that page for the first time, it might be also a good idea to read through the instructions. It might make your life a little bit less frustrating if you encounter a problem. And then next, try to find the link that leads to the archive itself, which is in this case here, the one which is in this red box. Some Family Search Wiki pages will have a second link on this page that will explain exactly how to use the Czech archive page. Some archives started to translate their website into English, but this is, for now at least, still in its infancy. You might have the main guiding menu on top in English, but the rest might be all still in the Czech language. But if you are not sure, use an online translating tool. It will automatically translate you the Czech text into English. And each archive will have a slightly different page. Oops. Here it will give you the choice between the Catholic records, as you can see in this red box here, the Lutheran records, the civil records, and the civil registry records. The civil registry records started very late in the Czech lands. Most of the time, you will need the parish records which need to be accessed. Well, whatever you pick, it will give you a choice that will look something like this. I mentioned before that the parish records are stored under the town name where the parish church stood, not under the little town your ancestor was from. But I would still guide you to also check the town of where your ancestry was directly residing in. Because sometimes if the town mayor of your small town had a special folder created for its citizens, it might be stored under your ancestral town name. And the same with a town name where the local community seat was. Often it was the same as the parish town, but not always. Always check all the possibilities so that you don't miss something by accident. And then I would say happy searching. And if you are not sure how to find the record for your ancestral town or cannot deal with the website, come back to our center, to one of the family history centers or family search centers, how they are called now. You can find out online where the nearest family search center is. Even though each archive page looks a little bit different, there are usually two different systems. Either you need to drill down to the correct location, as just shown on an example of the Samers archive, or like in the example here, you need to search the parish town by using the search box. And this is the Brno archive. If it is a Czech town and your ancestors are Germans who lived there, you should search the town name twice, once under its Czech name and once under its former German name. You never know if you will discover any differences and set of records that are only filed under one name. And the online gazetteer by Professor Gundacker, which I showed to you a few minutes ago, will tell you the German and the Czech name. Here are some of the most important abbreviations and symbols used on the archive website. The Czech alphabet is similar to the English one, except for that the diphthong CH comes after the letter H, because in the Czech language, the two are sounding rather similar. And remember, the Czech alphabet is much longer than the English one, especially with all its diacritics. Here is something you need to know when doing research in the Czech parish records, no matter if they are in the Czech language or maybe even in the German language. And you will find both, depending on if Germans dominated in that geographical area. Many parishes will have several sets of the same records. For example, christenings for 1810 to 1815, just to pick two numbers. But these record sets for these 40 years will be divided by town where these folks lived. Let's say to the parish belonged 10 different towns. In that case, you will find 10 different sets of christening records for the very same time frame. And this regulation to divide the sets into towns started about the year 1784. Usually the Czech archive pages points this out, but family search often does not point it out. While you might find the majority of your ancestors in a town they lived, don't ignore the other 9 sets completely when we are taking still the same example as before, where it might be in 10 different towns divided. So your ancestor might have lived in another town within the very same parish. For example, when they were newlyweds, or maybe even later on, when they were already giving all the inheritance to the children and they were kind of retired. Or the parish priest made a mistake and recorded it in the wrong set of records. I have seen happenings this more than once. So even though you might be lucky and have, let's say, 95 or 99% of all the entries in one set, in one subset, don't ignore the other subsets. Mistakes happen, and they still do today. Some archives have useful notes that you should not ignore. Here it tells you in which parish the entries were made before this parish here was established. And of course, just to make your life a little bit more difficult, those notes are usually in the Czech language. So just copy the text into Google Translate, and you might save yourself a lot of headache. Here is a basic vocabulary. If there is something that is not in this list, use the one on Family Search Wiki. And if still not found, use an online dictionary. Or even better, buy a printed dictionary. The advantage of a printed dictionary is that you can see similar words of the one you try to translate in case you misread the word in a record. Most online dictionaries will only tell you entry not found or something like this. And here is a little bit of grammar. First, the endings of a female family names. In a Czech language, they end on ova or ova with W instead of a V. The form with a W is the older form. And here are a couple of examples. Novak is the name, the male, and Novakova is the female. The same with Levoda, except that the last letter is dropped and ova attached to the end to make the family name female. Or in the last example here, for Berošek, the letter E disappears completely. The letter K moves on its place and ova is added. These rules always depend on which letter combination is at the end of a male family name. Some people in Family Search record the female names with ova at the end, and some don't. Ova only means that the carrier of this family name is female, nothing else. It is the same situation in the older German records, where a female name ends on IN. It's the same situation. It only tells us that the carrier of this family name is female. And we have also a chance, a change at the ending of a family name. But also sometimes the first name changes when the genitive case comes in. The genitive case indicates possession, like a child belonging to a father or mother, or a wife belonging to a husband, or vice versa. Here the female names could end on a Y and the male names on an A, including a change on a given name. If you are not sure about the correct spelling of a given or family name, either Google that name or look it up in other records and see how it's spelled there. And here is one of the beauties of a Czech christening record. The younger records often list 3 generations just in one entry. It's kind of make the whole entry foolproof for anyone who tries to assemble their genealogical lines. Sometimes the child's father's line does not contain the third generation, but the mother's side of the newborn child often does. This was a law, and it stated in 1784, but it was not adopted immediately by everyone. Parishes that had a German-speaking priest adopted it faster than those who had a Czech-speaking priest, at least so far what I have seen. And it was the first done for the mother's family only, and only in the christening records. Sometimes it actually took almost 100 years until all, both, I mean, father and mother had their 3 generations recorded. So I don't know the reason why it was only started first for the mother and not immediately adopted for the father too. So some more on the church records here. These church records include births, christenings, marriages, deaths, and burials. And they may be written in the Czech language, or in German, or in Latin, or sometimes a combination, depending on religious denomination, region, and the time period. House numbers are frequently included in the younger church records. They are very useful in grouping families together. In some regions, it was customary for a couple to use godparents from the same families for all their children. In case you are not sure if you are still in the same family and the house numbers are different. So sometimes sorting the entries according to all the godparents is a useful strategy in this case. Most church records have at least some kind of indexes, which simplifies the research. Also, phonetic spelling variants of surnames should be kept in mind when searching the indexes. For example, the soft and hard consonants, letter combination where one letter is silent, etc. Also, before the 1781 Edict of Tolerance, Protestants were included in the Roman Catholic parish registers to some extent. But afterwards, they were free to keep their own records. Sometimes Protestants were listed in the records of both denominations. And here are a few words to land records or court records. Family members missing from the church records may be included in land transfers or partitions found in the land record books. When a farm is passed on to the next generation, all living heirs are listed by name, often in birth order, along with their specified inheritance. Separate land records books may be kept for farmers and cottagers. The same family may show up in several volumes. Only some of them are indexed. Some books classified as land records, especially on Family Search, are actually marriage contracts volumes. Whenever land record books are available, it is important to look through every volume and determine its real content, since the descriptions may be vague or even sometimes incorrect. And additional volumes may be accessible on the archive website which might not be available on Family Search. But to go through these land records or court records is rather for someone who is either quite fluent in the Czech language or so desperate because there are no other records available. But I would say that almost all the church records are in existence. And the large majority, I think, that are complete. And so the land records are mostly ignored by everyone. Austria did census records, and younger those are, more useful they become. Census records and lists of residents are found on Family Search, and they generally cover the 19th and 20th centuries. Some are also available in original online archives. Available years vary by region, and they are usually not indexed. Also, they may only include part of the local population. To search the records, go to the Family Search collection for Czech census records. Choose a judicial district, then the community and the census year. Last main topic, the online maps that are useful for Czech research. Arcanum maps are nice to look through, and this website was until recently called Mapire. And for the Morava region, they have very detailed cadastral maps available for free for each town. And the cadastral maps for Bohemia, also the Bohemian part of Czech Republic, are also in the Arcanum database, but also in the GeoProLižec database. And that's it. Now you know the basics of Czech research. I hope I did not overload you too much with information. As it is with everything, doing it regularly will help you to become more familiar with the research process. And here are 4 beautiful images of the beautiful city of Prague. It's definitely worth a visit. And that's it. Thank you very much for listening.